بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق رب العالمين سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Tafakkur Podcast, where we discuss challenges facing Muslim youth in the West. I'm joined by my brothers, Sheikh Mustafa Akhound, Brother Ali Naqi Faizi, and Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah to you, to both of you brothers, and also to our viewers.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very quickly, we'll recap last episode's discussion, where we discussed basics of marriage. We talked about the Islamic, the purpose of marriage in Islam, what it's supposed to serve. And we talked about some of the benefits. We also talked about some of the positive reasons behind getting married and some of the negative reasons behind getting married. Today, inshallah, we'll take it a step further by talking about the ideal timing for marriage. For an optimal marriage, we'll discuss timing in matters of age, maturity, and inshallah, we'll also discuss material readiness and if there is an even need for that. We'll discuss these issues in four following questions. Number one, is there an appropriate age for getting married? Number two, how do we know if we are mature enough for marriage? Number three, what level of material readiness is sufficient to get married, if any? And finally, are there harms to getting married too early or too late? Inshallah, we'll begin with the age question, which is a subjective one. Sheikh, now can you open us up?
Again, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think age is something that is relative. Throughout my research and studying in Middle East and in the West, I've seen typically kids get much mature sooner than the kids in the West. In Middle East, for example, you see a 13-year-old, 15-year-old boy, he's really mature. And he's
physically
you're
talking about puberty here, like
also and mentally, like you see them even like physically. One day we were in Najaf, I saw an 8-year-old literally 8 or 9-year-old was on a motorbike, and they were just in the middle of the street because they grew up in the street, so they really become tough sooner than what we see in the West, which the kids are typically pampered and do's and don'ts. Or even girls, like for example, a girl at age 15, 16, 17, she's really, really mature. But we don't see that kind of maturity typically in the West for girls and boys, again, alike. So I think the age is relative, and we cannot have a one-size-fit-all age that, okay, this age, when you reach this age, khalas, you have to get married. If not, basically, the countdown of becoming late has started, for example. But throughout the research, I think, again, that can be argued against. And we're gonna see.
What I can agree in the sense that the timing is relative. Like every person, has their own time where it would be like, Allah knows best, beneficial for them to get married. And there is no one size fits all. But as far as maturity with children or kids in the West and kids in the East back home, I would say they're mature in different things, I would say like in a social setting, maybe even educationally wise, like I would say the Western kids are probably more mature in that sense. But physically, I can definitely understand, like growing up in the street, being street smart in that sense. Eastern kids can definitely be more mature. I just think they're mature in different ways, different environments. Like you mentioned the motorcycle example, but in America, you can't really do that.
True.
It's not allowed. So you can't expect a child to be like that. You can't expect a child to even be in the street out past curfew. But over there, back home,
there's no curfew.
No curfew, yeah. So it's definitely, I would say maturity, environment plays a part. But the relativity, I definitely agree with.
I was also going to add, when it comes to environment, like you said, street smart and being in different parts of the world exposes you to different social realities, but also biologically in warmer climates you physically change much quicker. So subjectivity is huge. When it comes to age though, is there a connection between age and taklif, or is taklif a little bit more subjective, not black and white?
Before I go to this, I want to ask, it's just for argument, I'm not sure if secular education brings maturity. I can be wrong with that.
Interesting.
But I don't think like vice versa. Doesn't mean that if you're illiterate but you're street smart, you're definitely mature, and if you are secular, you have secular education, you are not, or vice versa. But I think typically more street smart will be closer to maturity than those who are really have dedicated their time to secular education. I'm not opposing to it, but as far as maturity is concerned, I think relatively it doesn't bring maturity. I'm not sure if you agree.
What I'll say in response to that is, if you mean like the education system, I can see that somewhat. But one thing I'll say is, like, there are a lot of homeschool kids in the West. Parents don't really trust the Western school systems. So I'll say, I think just the facet and the agenda, or like I guess the expectations here in the West for education for children, I would say it's higher. And I mean, if you look at it like from a global perspective, like people definitely consider like the education system, or at least the standard of education in the West, to be higher. So then when you have that, I'm just saying in the sense that when your kid is exposed, to more advanced curriculum, or like even in a sense like just that expectation to learn more and more and really go into school, go to college, eventually get a career, when that's there, the child gets exposed to like, multiple different perspectives and ideas. So like, of course they definitely have the Islamic, I would say Western cultural, back home maturity that the children in the West have, but the Eastern children, definitely have, I would say, outside perspectives. When you have multiple perspectives, there's not only does it help shape your own perspective or your own Islamic perspective, but like, why you believe in what you believe in.
I think in the East, the kids become tougher sooner than in the West. Like we went back home.
What do you mean by tougher?
Like they will be ready for life. I think
the harshness of life.
Harshness of
overcoming
life, definitely,
tribulation.
because the school system I lived in Iraq for like 4 years, pursuing my seminary studies, and I had my kids to go, and it was kind of also private school. But at the same time, like the amount of work that they ask from the kids, and memorization and reading
higher
and
standards.
writing. I was surprised that in Iraq that they have, in here, in the West, we typically don't memorize things. Typically. It's...
So you really lived both experiences in terms of sending your kids to school in the East and here. So you
when
see
they go there again, they come home and they were literally crying that they had to memorize lines after lines after lines. Everything had to be memorized. And then homeworks, writing and writing and writing. In here, no, they don't have much more variety. But I think kids, that's why also the education system in the East, I kind of prefer it. A little bit more strict, a little bit more intense, rather than easy. Okay, here's your grade, fun time, activities and stuff. I mean, it doesn't prepare you as
You're focusing on appeasing the students sometimes, as opposed to helping them grow. Before we get too far away from the age topic, though, in Islam, according to Quran or Hadith, is there like an age range for marriage? For like this is the minimum age for a gentleman and a gentlewoman?
Well, with the age and taklif, I mean, a boy becomes mature at age 15, lunar calendar, which is almost 14 and a half, the Western calendar. Or sooner if they see the signs of puberty on boys. For girls, finishing the age of 9, again, and entering 10, lunar calendar also, they become baligh or mukallaf, where they are obliged to participate in all the religious obligations.
Do they have, at that early of an age though, do they have a complete mental intellect, which is, I guess we're going to talk about in the next section in terms of mental intelligence or mental intellectual capacity?
We'll see when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed this age for maturity. He knows something that you and I don't know. And maybe, I mean, definitely his expectation from a 9-year-old girl just started 10 or 15-year-old, or I know some of the boys who became mature at age 12. They saw some of the signs of puberty and they started...
Physical signs.
Right. Allah's expectation from them will be completely different than... I want them from that moment onward that I will want you to partake in all of the wajibat, salah, saum, fasting, prayers, and everything else that is wajib for an adult. It's wajib upon them. But definitely he will be more lenient with kids if they missed here and there and stuff, rather than me, for example. Okay, I won't have that excuse that they had. Well, I couldn't wake up. It was too early. It was too cold, for example, wintertime, to do wudu with cold water. And so their excuse, I think it will be, Allah will excuse them rather than the adult. As far as age, I have not seen specific age in the hadith that Ahlulbayt have said, okay, this age they have to get married, or this is recommended. I have seen a hadith by Rasulullah that for the girl to be as early as it can. And it's very kind of a hard hadith, like he has put the ultimate age and mindset that the girl should be. We won't be able to get to that because that's too early for us according to the West. But when that is set as a standard, we have to be as much close to it as possible. So I haven't seen anything as far as number is concerned. But what I think around age of 18 to 21, 22, some can go younger. For example, I was looking within different communities, even in the West, those who have much more cultural upbringing in their house, culture and religion, such as girl gets responsibility in the house at a very young age. Like you have to start doing things. Like around age 3, 4, 5, you have to start having daily chores in the house, because you belong to house, and house is your palace. You are the CEO of your house. So you have to start knowing how to manage your house, even at age 3, 4, 5.
How would you prepare a boy at that age as well? Like how do you develop a boy? That's how you develop a girl.
So let me finish the girl, and then I'll come to the boy also. So the girl helping with the mom in the kitchen, cleaning, organizing, and whatever the woman should do in the house. Slowly, she get to know of it. So I've seen some girls, again, in the West, they are maybe around age of 14. But you can see them to be able to run a house. Like they know in the house, making sure, for example, if anything's on the stove, it's turned off, washing the dishes, cleaning, looking after the kids. They had younger siblings in the house, so the mom gave them that responsibility that you have to look after them. So you can see them, they have matured, and they can take that responsibility. For the boys, it's the same thing, that you are responsible, like around age of 14, 13, 12, okay, start working here. Here's money, because you're going to be the breadwinner. You have to provide. And unfortunately, in the West, you cannot work until maybe 15 and a half, 16 and a half. Based on different states, they have their age limit. But taking responsibility of younger brothers. Like this is what I did with my older son. He's 19 right now. Probably 6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. So he was only 12 or 13 or even younger. He was responsible for his 3-year-old brother. 4-year-old brother, that you have to look after him, take him outside, take him shower, feeding him. It was Muharram time that I was in the West lecturing, and he's only 11, 12 years old himself, or 13 maximum. He was taking responsibility of a 4-year-old brother in Muharram in Karbala. So you do between Mawakib and taking
a lot of traffic.
Yes. So this is how my mom raised me when I was 9 and 10, and then okay, here's the shopping bag. I remember I used to walk back and forth a mile to go shopping, grocery shopping. That shows you that, okay, you are going to be responsible. This is part of the job, that you have to learn about it. So some parents, due to the upbringing of their kids, they can see them getting ready sooner than age of 18. So when we said 18, if you see your son, he's ready 17 or even 16, he's ready. He can take responsibility, and he's already baligh. And again, that responsibility is relative. I mean, from the beginning of their life, they don't have all of these responsibilities.
It's like you're starting slow.
Definitely.
Slow.
Open the ideas
age.
to it. Like talk with them. Okay, I think we're ready. So get them ready. You won't be able to suddenly, ta-da, marriage, here's your bride. No, get them ready. Same thing, girls and boys. They have to, as a upbringing of the parents, should be that, okay, this is where you're going to be ending up. So get yourself ready, get your acts together. And so I think 18 to 21, 22 will be good age. Even with that, it shouldn't be that, okay, right now at age 18, okay, let me start looking.
Exactly. Yeah. So we mentioned like biologically, while you might be reaching biological physical maturity at early 13 for a boy, 12 for a boy, 9, 10 for a girl. Obviously, now we need to discuss, okay, this is prerequisite number 1, but then there's now more prerequisites in terms of like maturity, intellectual maturity. What does that mean, and how is that a prerequisite?
Before we move on, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, I just wanted to mention some things. But do you think that applies to like the West too? Because I know you're mentioning how in the East, typically younger, those responsibilities are shifted onto them sooner. And in a sense, you can say, I guess they're more, it's not that their life, I guess you can say like from a societal aspect, their life is less structured because they have the freedom for their parents to dictate what they should do. Like, okay, you can start working now. You can start taking care of the chores. Would you say in the West is different? Because some people would argue, like that, it takes longer for a boy to get in that habit of like establishing like, a healthy work life and understanding one's responsibilities, especially like, with friends, kids that are raised here, enjoyment is a big aspect of their life, going out, playing games, with girls too, hanging out with their friends, the latest trends and stuff like that.
See, the thing is, the upbringing is very important. Doesn't matter, East or West. So that's number 1. Okay. Number 2, I think if the upbringing is not there, basically the parents haven't done a good job of transferring the responsibility as soon as they can, so the kids will learn that this is the way life is. Delaying it, they won't learn it either. Okay. So it's not that, okay, after the age of 19, 20, 21, maybe even gets worse. Why? Because they might had some restriction in their parents' house. And unfortunately, with the Western lifestyle, age 18 they want to leave the house. So they want to be that independent, I'm on my own. And then they start enjoying that freedom that they didn't have kind of in the parents' house, or they had a curfew. So they will continue with that lifestyle and not even being responsible for themselves. How many kids I have seen, like, or even no longer kids, like youth, 23, 25, 26, you still see them. They have a child mindset, like as far as games and playing and not being responsible even about their own affairs. Like, I remember when I was in a university, 3rd year in university. So you are already 21, 22, and you already have done 3 years. First day in the class, so many times it happens. The teacher will ask, okay, the first day in the class, your name, your major. A lot of people undeclared. So what have you been doing this past 3 years? Like, you still undeclared or undecided. When are you going to decide after 3 years of college? So you can see the same thing applies. So I think even for those people, putting me into that situation, okay, right now you're married. Okay, and as I have said always, younger or older, when we get them married, they need training wheels. And I told a lot of youth here that, okay, when you started, I will be that training wheel. Are you going to fall right? You're going to fall left? I'm going to be there, and I'm going to help you. When you see that you got it, okay, please unscrew me, throw me. You got it on your own.
Can't that be a little dangerous, though? I mean, people jumping in with the assumption that, like, hopefully my training wheels will save me. Not saying that, you can't do a great job. But
I'm not going to be there all the time.
Like, holding the hand can only be beneficial until, like, a point, because once you let go, without that support, they might feel shaky or whatever may happen. Also, another point that you mentioned earlier that I thought was interesting, you mentioned that usually for girls, the responsibility is the housework, CEO, you said, of the house, right?
Yes.
Don't you think there's a certain extent, or like people in the West believe that, like maybe women should also be prepared, to join the workforce and stuff like that, be self-sufficient, because you never know. I mean, divorce is skyrocketing nowadays, within the West. Even marriage, like the marriage rates have decreased. So like,
Yes.
Wouldn't you say that, in a sense that alongside the responsibilities of the house, that societal maturity is also required?
See, societal maturity doesn't come again from workforce. Same thing as I've seen in the...
Or education. Including
both.
education.
It doesn't. I haven't seen good environment, either a work or education system, that they teach you maturity, they teach you being responsible, they teach you how to treat wife and husband, they teach you how you should live your life. No, an education system, okay, these are the books, these are stuff that
Very
you
product driven.
That's it.
Yeah.
And when you work, okay, you come here 9 to 5, you clock in, clock out. This is your responsibility, and you move on.
But I mean, it does add a schedule to people's lives. I mean, there's a structure.
Of course, you cannot deny the structure.
Maybe no emotional development,
No emotional,
spiritual development,
solving problems. Like, how many are there classes that will teach
I mean,
you?
problem solving. I mean, no, there are some.
maybe.
There's a little bit of problem solving in
Yeah,
college,
yeah,
just
I
a little
mean-
bit, but,
I mean-
but there is no like you're not going to go and learn about how to really deal with relationships,
Yes.
how to maintain your faith in a foreign country where it's
Yeah.
very
That's
very
true.
challenging,
That's
how to raise responsible children. I mean, there's not one
Yeah.
a course in college. There's a course in college called Persuasion, but there's no course in college on raising children.
That's true.
Just as a reflective of the society that we live in.
These are all like, I would say those are all topics that, like Sheikh mentioned earlier, those are like within the home.
Yeah.
You know, so like, what about the issues that they face outside? Like,
Yeah,
in the
let me
world?
recalibrate your question because it was a really good one.
Yeah.
Because you were saying, I mean, first of all, we're in the West, so there's
Yeah.
some realities that we have to be a little bit more practical about.
Yeah.
Not every Muslim woman in the West wants to just be in the house. A lot of them
Yeah.
want to pursue an education, they want to pursue a career. So I think maybe you're also talking about how the parents, when they're developing the child at a very young age, specifically when we're talking about our sisters, how can the parents also prepare them for a life in the West where it could go outside of the house?
Yeah.
If some women don't want to leave the house, they do want to be a CEO of the house. Some
But
would
see,
prefer to contribute
you-
to society.
Both of you are mentioning good points. These are all around the topic of what I want to do, what the family wants to do. Rather, we have to shift our mindset, what Allah wants me to do, what Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, Rasulullah, Quran, what they want me to do. So within religion of Islam, we are not egocentric.
Absolutely.
Everything is around me. No, I'm around religion. We take the religion, we want to shape it around our own needs. Rather, I have to shape myself around the religion. Religion says up here, okay, I have to be up here. Religion says down here, I'll down here. Religion says silence here, I'll be silence. Even though I might want to say something, but the religion says be quiet. I'm quiet. In here, religion says say something. Even though I really want to be quiet. It's an uncomfortable situation, it's very awkward. Religion says, well, you have to say things. So the mission of this podcast and all the speakers that are outside in the West, and unfortunately, East and West are all getting the same thing. Since you see a lot of divorces.
It's creeping gradually to that. side,
Globalization.
you know.
I wish it was gradually. It's you'll be surprised,
surprised.
Much faster than we are anticipating. So, what does Islam prescribe for me, as a mother, as a father, as a husband, as a wife, as a woman, as a man, as a children? What they prescribe for me? Does it have a plan for me? Of course, it does have a plan. So, Islam says, according to hadith from Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, that Imam Ali alayhi salam and Fatima Zahra one day, inshallah, we will talk about this hadith in depth in one episode, but I just want to touch base on it, that she asked, and they asked Rasulullah, can you distribute our responsibilities? And Rasulullah said, anything from door inside the house is your responsibility, and anything from door outside is his responsibility. And she said, Allah knows how happy I got that my father left me of that responsibility and took this responsibility out of my shoulder to be interacted with men, and for men to see me and for me to see men. I'm so happy about it, and Allah knows how happy I am. So that becomes a prescription. So Islam is not against education of women, not at all.
Of course.
Hadith of Rasulullah, talabul ilm faridah, gaining knowledge is an obligation. Ala kulli mu'minin wa mu'minah. Or in another hadith, Muslimin wa muslimah. Muslim men and Muslim women, believing men and women. But the means to that education. Alhamdulillah, after COVID and all of these online studying, you don't have to be outside. You can learn all of these things. And that should not, unfortunately, that should not stop marriage happening. Well, I have to finish my education, then get married.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I
For
agree.
both boys and
Yeah.
girls. You see, unfortunately, 99% of marriages are not happening. Why? Because they both are delaying marriage for education. So that's a big problem. So she said, I want to finish education. Then you have to wait. He said, no, I have to finish education. Then you have to wait. And then kept delaying and delaying. And when the time comes, they finish education, they got their career, especially girls. Okay, right now let's find a boy. Well, guess what? You're already like 27, 28, 29, 20, even 6.
That's true.
So the boys that you're going to get is going to be around age 30. So they already been taken, whatever is left. Well, good luck.
And vice versa, right?
Vice versa.
Something that you made me think about just now. But I totally agree that, like, with everything in the house, like that mother figure within the family, 100% responsibility of a woman, you know, that shouldn't be abandoned. That's important because you want to raise children that, inshallah, can be self-sufficient and be as a form of sadaqah jariyah when you pass on, you know, that can get you good deeds. But some women just really have that passion. Like, for instance, in the community, we need female doctors. We need women that are teachers. So many other job areas where women can excel, where they help other women, you know, because they require it, you know.
Well, we have to see what is the priority. If the priority is outside the house, sure. But the priority...
I'm not saying over prioritize. I'm saying that the house should be the priority.
So when you prioritize the house, there's nothing left. There's no time left to do anything outside the house.
I mean, but...
In most cases.
In
most cases.
There are instances, because remember, grandparents, like, for instance, I know some people who leave their
grandparents. Yeah,
they leave their children with the grandparents,
True,
right?
True.
The husband and the wife, they both go work. They come home, you know, everything's fine because, you know, initially the children get the same upbringing that the mother got, and you know. So
I think like Sheikh provided us with like that narration as a perfect prescription. And I think like according to what you're saying, that narration is more so of a priority rather than a limitation. Other than like Sheikh is saying, that priority is a pretty strong responsibility. On a tangent, I once wrote an article about the non-apparent salary of a stay-at-home mother from this perspective of life insurance. So is it only the working spouse, assuming one spouse is working, that needs life insurance? Or does the stay-at-home spouse need life insurance? And when we use the title CEO for the stay-at-home mother that's taking care of the home, it's a perfect title because she is truly a CEO of many different functions. And there's it's a six-figure wage. When you monetize the work of a stay-at-home parent, man or woman, it becomes a six-figure salary in this country. So it is a huge responsibility. So it would be hard to imagine where if I am fulfilling this priority at 100%, that I'll have extra time. But in some circumstances,
again, like having grandparents, of course,
but then also working at home. You know, there's so many jobs
now
you can work at home.
Reality.
There's part-time work. You know, I just feel like, of course, the priority has to be, you know, the children, the family has to be prioritized. But I think the room for, you know, work, and I guess if that is a passion, or if that need is there for that, you know, that job, that occupation within the community, for the greater community, then why not?
Okay.
So pivoting, I think we talked about the maturity a little bit. I mean, when it comes to maturity, we have like intellectual, being able to consume knowledge and apply knowledge on an everyday basis in order to discern between good and bad. Emotional intelligence or maturity, where we can actually problem solve together, communicate clearly. Spiritual intelligence, my knowledge of the faith and ability to apply that, and from a fiqh perspective, and especially theologically, be able to guide my family. On the emotional one, I'm interested to ask you about that as social media generation, as a part of that. You and all three of us, actually. Sheikh is actually, you know, not too far from us. But do you feel like, you know, with social media today, especially today, so much instant gratification, so much information fatigue, standards are unrealistic. Do you think like modern day social media reality kind of diminishes our emotional intelligence? So people are, from an emotional standpoint, being able to socialize and solve social problems with one another is diminished because we live in this weird virtual world where like partial reality is social media?
Well, I think that it's definitely like the impact of social media on this generation or my generation is definitely relative. Like, it can have its positives, you know, as far as like, you know, your outlooks on life, your expectations when it comes to marriage, meeting people, you know, your ideal life. But I can't go on and say that social media doesn't make or have a direct impact on people's unrealistic expectations. Like, you know, when you go on Instagram or you go on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, you immediately see videos, especially the popular ones, where like, oh, someone's like, you know, has $1 million car, $1 million house, you know, living life to the fullest, full of enjoyment, partying, whatever, trends, whatever it may be, right? And initially, especially since like the algorithms nowadays are like short pieces of media, you know, it's nothing like, very rarely will you see people actually consume media that's longer than like 5 minutes. TikTok videos,
and it's
are
usually not beneficial content either.
It's typically like under 15 seconds, 30 seconds at most, because people are like, watch it, okay, next one, swipe, you know, they're just consuming it at a rapid pace. So then when there's a lot of it, in forms of maybe a one-on-one conversation with an actual human being, like it just, your ability to focus and be present, that your ability to just socialize with other people, your expectations, it's ultimately something that even makes you really depressed, because like you lose Facebook the gratification. Depression is an actual thing now. Like being like grateful for what you do have in your life is directly affected by that. I mean, every time you go on, if you see stuff that you don't have, you're gonna start hating your own life. You know, so might even lead you to have like a whole, we talked about the positive and negative reasons to get married. True. I feel like social media today has increased the criteria for what I want in my ideal wife or husband, because of what I'm seeing every day on social media. And it's really funny, because you'll see like, typically when I'm on TikTok, right, if you see anything like a cute couple post, and I'm unmarried, right, you know, I'm not married yet. Inshallah, not for long. Yeah, not for long, inshallah. Let's pray. I gotta add my Instagram handle to the, but when you go on, right, and you see these videos, I'll go to the comment section. Immediately, I see people commenting, laying on the highway. Laying on the highway, like meaning like they're done with life, you know. Oh, like, yeah, like literally, now? Yeah, like they're like, because like they're sick and they're tired of just seeing these kind of posts, and that they don't have it, and you know that's ultimately what you get for, you know. True. It's kind of like dangling like a piece of meat in front of a dog, you know, for lack of better example. Yeah. You see what does it do with their emotions, basically? Yeah. Now, what about aql, intellect? When does that usually come? Are we born with it? Does it come at a certain age or period? How do we know when it arrives? It's a big thing in Islam, no? It is, and as we can see within the books of our narrations, our four books of ahadith, the first chapter is about aql and jahl. And that's the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. And Allah said, can you go into that a little bit? I'm sorry, that sounds too interesting to comb over. Like with the human being? The first thing that Allah created was aql, the intellect. And then Allah told intellect to come, it came. Allah told intellect to go, it went. Allah said, by you I will reward, and by you I will punish. And there are so many narrations in the first chapter of Usul Kafi about aql. That's one of them, that Allah will not complete aql in someone except that He loves them. So if you see you have intellect, means Allah loved you and gave you this intellect. Not that doesn't mean that Allah picks and chooses who He likes or who dislikes. Allah knows us. I mean, He created us. He knows what's best for us. Not only what is best for us, He will know that whatever He gives us as a blessing, we will use it to the best of our abilities, or we will ruin it. And use it, yeah. So for example, right now I have my own 4 kids. You will be able to see, and I will be able to be really close to it. This person, for example, if I give them money this much, what they will do with this money, and how much what they will do with this. Like each one of them will be different. Which one will waste it? Which one will spend it wisely? Again, as a father, and also a little bit bigger as a community, like having to see a lot of youth, I can see who's more responsible with money, who's not responsible, who's more mature in as far as tasks being given to them, who is careless. So you can see different people. So we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who He created us, so He knows our potentials and capacities. So intellect is something that we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more and more. It's part of our dua, that Allah increase my intellect, increase my knowledge, because with this I will be able to. Intellect is like a light, Noor. And then deen is like a map. Subhanallah. So Allah, the more we have, the brighter the intellect is, the greater we can see from deen, and deen is the map to our salvation. No. So
The more we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for aql, the more we will be able to see this is right and this is wrong, this is haqq and this is batil, do's and don'ts of the religion which has been prescribed to us by the teachings of Quran and Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. So that's one of the du'as that we have to ask Allah. And again, as a parents, we have to make sure that we work on our kids' intellect. Intellect is different than knowledge.
Correct. And brain.
And
Aql,
brain.
It's not the same thing.
No, not at all. Intellect. I mean, intellect and aql is the same thing, not the brain. So intellect and aql. A lot of people have knowledge, but they're not intellectual. And some people, you see them to be illiterate. Literally,
But
they
they're
don't know how to read and write, but they are really, really intellectual people. Even in business, some people, they don't have any degree. And you see them, they're making millions because they're good with money. And some people, they have a lot of degrees, and due to them not having the economical mindset and intellect, they lose money right and left.
Absolutely.
And they don't know where to bring the money, how to invest it. Same thing for marital life. Intellect is very important, that I should work on myself. Same thing that I'm hoping, I'm talking right now, me, Ali Naqi, that I'm hoping that I find an intellectual wife.
Inshallah.
I have to also work on my intellect.
Absolutely.
So the more intellectual person I become, inshallah, I will find person who is close to me intellectually.
Inshallah. We'll pray for him. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
I
And a
love
lot of prayers we have to do for Ali Naqi.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
He's a great brother, mashallah. It won't take
Alhamdulillah.
long, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I loved the analogy you gave of the light and the map, because as soon as you said that and you were talking about ilm and knowledge, immediately I remembered a hadith by Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, where he says, إن العلم نور يقذفه الله في قلب من يشاء.
العلم نور. Yes.
That knowledge is a light that
True.
Allah
Instills and
very quickly
inspires.
يقذف into the heart of whomever he desires.
Again, that needs a clarification. Not that again Allah picks and choose. Okay, for
يهدي من
example,
يشاء ويضل من
no,
يشاء.
for example, in here I said, for example, me Allah, I don't like Aynak, I'm not going to give him light of this nur, of this intellect. I'll give it to Brother Hussain Al-Mutawakil, or vice versa. No, Allah sees. Another analogy will be, for example, if we're all sitting here and thirsty, and we have cups, empty cup, and a person walks in here, if my cup is dirty, he won't give me water until I go and wash it. So, Yahdi man yasha, have I purified and cleansed my heart to receive this light?
Hidayah.
Have I done it or no? I'm just doing whatever I want. Oh Allah, see, He guided him. He didn't guide me. He has some beef with me. He didn't have that.
Subhanallah.
So I have to cleanse myself and ask dua, and why Allah wouldn't give it to me? Like, why not? Like, why He wouldn't give me that knowledge which will guide me to my salvation?
I was sitting down with a brother a few years back who was telling me Allah doesn't answer prayers. And I said, not only does the Quran contradict what you just said, but I don't think you've searched enough to understand why is He not understanding your prayers.
True.
Like what you're saying. Sometimes there's a blockage.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about like just spiritual intelligence, knowledge of Islam. Like how do we, like we said, with intellectual knowledge, it's really hard to define, okay, son, you now have the intellect enough to get married. It's really, like you said, as a father, as a mother, you observe your children and you kind of give them rite of passage, if you will. But in terms of like spiritual intelligence or religious intelligence, what's like, I feel like that needs a threshold before you're ready to take care of a spouse, to raise children, start a family.
We do have a lot of teachings about that. For example, Rasulullah said, do not marry those girls, khadra ad-daman in Arabic. What does it mean?
Right.
Rasulullah said is like a beautiful flower which been raised next to a trash can. It's a very beautiful flower.
Environment, family
The
upbringing.
environment, the family, the upbringing is very important about the upbringing. The same thing for the boy. It applies
Always.
Both sides. So as far as spirituality, I think when we're looking for our future spouse, there are, as you mentioned, threshold, and there are some things that are deal breaker. That, okay, if he or she doesn't have this in her, I mean, we won't be a good match. She might be a good match for someone else, but me trying to bring religiosity more into my life, I need a partner.
We talked about this in your office one day. We were talking about climb together.
True.
As opposed to
Of course. So there is we are both trying to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get closer. And on this path of ours, there is shaitan.
Always.
He said, he promised that I will sit on this path. So I need someone who will help me to remove these obstacles, because the obstacle of shaitan is very big in front of me. And so we have two people, we can push it together and then put it aside. Not that person becomes a burden on me, that not only they don't help me, rather they pull me back when I want to remove this obstacle of shaitan on my way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that should be something that I have to keep in mind. Yes.
Just a question or a clarification. So does this mean that it's just not possible with people that, I guess, like, let's just say like a spouse or someone that's interested in you, right?
Or you're interested in.
Or you're interested in, who just happens to be maybe not from a not so good family or, environment, but they themselves are a good person. Or for instance, let's just say they come from a good environment, but you see them as, I guess, like maybe a lower, possibly higher level of religiosity.
Again, that's relative. Like the gap shouldn't be too big.
But what if you guys have the same goal?
Same goal? Okay, so the goal is for me, you and I, we get together to complete each other, faith and religiosity and personality, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day I will be short, understandable. One day you will be short, understandable. One day you don't feel like it, one day I don't feel like it, understandable. This is part of our human nature. But if that is not the goal, well, it's not going to work for me.
Right.
Because we have completely different.
So as long as the goal is the same,
and then we're trying to achieve it. I mean, I do get a lot of cases for consultation, or unfortunately some of them that they come here divorced, which I try to convince them otherwise, that he really wants to be religious and she doesn't, or vice versa. She really wants to be religious with salah, he wants to always party and so on and so forth. So you can see it in life, their purpose in life and their goal in life is completely different. So they always have this obstacle. But if we are same goal, I might not do more the way that you do it, but we are the same thing. For example, one does more mustahabbat, the other one doesn't do mustahabbat, recommended act. At least wajibat, an obligatory act, we are agreeing that must be done. As far as hijab for men and women, both that we have hijab. As far as salah, as far as khums, and all our wajibat. But if the person says, well, I don't believe in salah. Not believing in salah, that's complete deal breaker. Or no, I believe in salah, but
no, I'm not ready.
Prayed.
A lot of
I'm not ready.
Yeah, so you can see there's a potential in this person. They're not rejecting salah completely. Now, I don't believe in this thing, so this person is a deal breaker. Or for example, I do have a husband who's convincing his wife to remove hijab. Well, she cannot, and she should not obey him in removing her hijab. And they've been married for many years right now, and that's been a conflict all the time. He wants to go everywhere, partying stuff, and he wants his wife to be with him. But she said, okay, these places we can't go, these places are haram, and I cannot remove my hijab, and this is a haram environment. So from the beginning, that was the wrong decision.
Not a good match.
Some people believe in the statement, though, opposites attract. What do you think of that?
Opposite in what?
Well, in this instance,
I like this. I like this
religiosity.
I like this one.
No, opposite. For example, again, opposite of one doing more and one doing less, but still we're doing it.
Okay.
Rather than you will be going north, I'm going to be going south. This is the opposite
really,
also. It's not going to work. We're always going to be, okay, should we, for example, I like always to go to Canada, for example, and my wife likes to go to Florida. We never will go to any vacation because we always
stay in Virginia.
Go to both worlds.
So for just to recap this one, just to tie it up, I'm a father and I have a son. He's looking to get married, or a daughter. In terms of spiritual knowledge or religious knowledge, would it be safe to assume that wajibat is the baseline that you are performing, or at least attempting to perform? First of all, you have knowledge of, and then you try to apply the knowledge in terms of performing all of your wajibat. Would that be a safe baseline?
Definitely.
If I didn't learn how to consistently pray, should I really be getting married at this time?
Yes. Because this will help. See, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa or the Imams in another hadith, they say getting married will protect half of your deen or 2/3 of your deen. Well, because you will be satisfied, your needs will be met. So with open mind, you can get divine guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because these needs are there. Like, for example, when you're hungry, like, for example, how many of us...
Blood pressure drops, get cranky.
There you go.
It's biological.
By the time iftar, Do we really
We
want
mentioned
to
this last night.
pray first and then go to iftar?
Yeah.
Or no, I mean, it's okay, go eat something so you have some
Break your
energy,
fast.
break your fast, and then come and pray. So definitely, if it's the right choice, again,
Right match.
both right match,
Compatible.
we can see that they have helped one another toward
Sah.
religiosity.
So you don't necessarily need to be checking all the boxes on the wajibat to be ready.
Because
for
everybody
marriage.
has missed one or two or
Sah.
three prayers.
Ahsantum.
So
Can't that be a little
Ahsantum.
dangerous though?
how?
I mean, in an instance like if you don't have that, I guess, like because we were earlier talking about the spiritual maturity, intellectual maturity. If you don't have that foundation, like I would say, from my perspective, when you're young, you change a lot.
True.
Like, you know, they say in college, like you change your, like the average student changes their major 3 times, and that's just like what they want to do for the rest of their life, let alone a person that they want to see themselves with the rest of their life. If you don't have that lifestyle in place already, who's to say that, you know, you're going to stay like that or you will get to that? Because at the end of the day, like that's not set in stone. So like, what if a partner makes that worse, for instance? You know?
See, there are many factors to this. Person's belief and maturity, intellectual, spiritually, and development is one thing. The family also plays a role. The environment plays a role. So when I go for a girl, for example, right now, I'm looking for a girl for my son, a lot of factors come into place rather than, okay, this person is good, khalas, let's move on with it because the box is all checked. So do they come from a good family that religion was part of their family? Or they were a family that religion had nothing to do with them. Only Ramadan 30 days and this is it. After that, they have nothing to do with religion. Or maybe they, God forbid, anti-religion. The environment that the girl or the boy grew up, it has an effect in that thing. So for example, I have some states, not mentioning any states right now. Typically, girls and boys within that state are not loyal to one another and they're getting divorced right and left from religious family. I'm talking very, very conservative religious family. But due to that openness and due to that environment that they're living in, I mean, I'm hearing cases after cases from very conservative religious family that they're not working at. So I'm thinking, what is wrong? So there's something happening in that state. So all of these factors play a role.
Would you say it's a matter of like intention or action?
Both. It has to be both.
It has to be both.
Both are very important. And again, people change. I might, and this is a test. I always have said, good spouse and a bad spouse, they both are a test. And I have
of course.
argued that the best spouse test is harder than
because
bad.
you have a responsibility towards them.
Are you appreciative
Right.
of that?
It's a
So,
mirror almost, yeah.
With a bad wife or bad husband, bad spouse, well, you just have to be sabr.
Patient.
Patient, khalas. But having a good spouse, well, you have to be really grateful of this person.
Yeah, that's a
which
really
makes it
good
harder.
point.
So if we see it as a test, I will do my due diligence as far as the family, as far as the person, some basic common understanding. After that, okay, whatever comes, it's Allah's hand. I did what I can. That's it.
اعمل بما تعلم ينفعك الله فيما لا تعلم.
Definitely.
Perfect segue to, which I think is relevant to discuss because we're in the West and we live in the land of hyper-capitalism, hyper-materialism. So in terms of, I mean, we all have talked about this to an exhausted state. Is there a threshold for material readiness in order to get married? In terms of, I have a stable income, I have the means of transportation, whether I drive, whether I have access to metro, bus, whether I can uphold the standards of living for the wife. Are there basic material necessities? I'm not talking about wealth, because we get really caught up with, I want to make this much money before I get married. I want to be financially set.
Or the parents put this much responsibility on you. This is what I need from you in order to give my daughter a hand.
So from an Islamic perspective, materially, what are we obligated or expected to have as a minimum, so we can alleviate our younger brothers who
Trying
might
to
have
make it easy
some
for you, Naqi.
Make it easy for you.
As much as I can.
trying to find
I will-
loopholes, bro.
I will try to make it easy for you.
Well, some people would argue that it should be hard. you know,
Hard?
to,
What
to
should be
prepare
hard?
people. Like for instance, I think obviously, like nowadays, through my experience, and I'm sure the experience of other young boys, like you can't really. I mean, you can go to someone's house, ask for their daughter's hand. You know, maybe you might not have like I guess like an end goal job where you like make a good amount of money where you're comfortable. But typically nowadays, people want, you know, son-in-laws that have that job, that have that career set, so they can take care of their daughter. For some of the more, I guess you could say, religiously progressive Western parents, they don't mind giving their daughter's hand to a boy that may not be financially situated yet,
according to their standards.
But is on the pathway though. But is on the pathway,
planning for it.
Yeah,
doing
that's
right
planning
things.
for it. But I mean, typically nowadays you'll see, and I don't think this is like a. It can be, I guess, to some extent, be seen as a religious thing, because at the end of the day, a father that's raised a child can have a set amount of, I guess, expectations from you, and ultimately, the girl that you're asking for will have expectations from you that you have to.
See,
Absolutely.
the problem, I mean, what the first ideology suggests, that this person, it won't be early anymore. It won't be between age of 18 to 21.
If they are trying to be financially set.
Yes, it won't be that
صح.
age.
They'll be mid-20s, 30.
Yeah,
Depending on the
late
occupation.
20s.
But then the question, like, doesn't that rise up? Well, then maybe shouldn't they wait till that age where they're financially
Good.
set?
But
At least
from
for
an
a
Islamic
man,
perspective,
yeah.
what
Yes.
are we expected to have ready materially?
See, we have to see, for example, I have a daughter. When a boy comes and asks my daughter's hand, I will see if this person is serious in his life and he's trying to provide as much as he can. Like from young age, right now, legally where he can work, he tried to work, he tried to put some money together, he did whatever he can. And he will do his best. But maybe Allah hasn't provided yet for him because he doesn't need it yet. I mean, you're still young, you're on your own. I always tell the kids, if $1,000 is good enough for you, why should Allah give you $2,000 right now, for example, monthly? Because you're going to get married. Allah says, no, go get married. Then I'll put risk in it for 2,000. Because any young kid, when their 1,000 become 2,000, they're not going to save it. I'm going to get married. No, let's just buy more of these materialistic
Let's enjoy.
things. It's just going to go away. So if I see that person is religious, as Rasulullah said, they are religious. Religious, again, not necessarily mean Quran. And
They care. They're
they
intentional.
care. They want
The
to provide.
intention.
Their intention and action shows.
Yeah.
They're not that, okay, I'm sitting home, okay, Allah will provide from. No, they did this, they did this, they tried this business, they didn't work, they worked here, they try to figure out themselves. And they're willing to provide. And my wife and I, we had this discussion. And I said, I can see that. If I can, I will be the beginning, I will be there for him. Because to guide him and to support him financially. And they can start.
You don't hear that every day.
Yeah, but would you
You
say
don't
that's a
hear that
standard
every
in the
day.
community? I mean,
It should
yeah,
become, okay, see,
sure.
because this is where we want to set up standards within this show. So whatever it is, unfortunately, and I will provide as much as I can for him, so he can provide slowly. Maybe I can borrow money for him to start investment as a business. If I see him, he has the ability, or connecting with other people who can start working. I must be there as a father of the son or the daughter. Doesn't matter.
100%.
If my son, for example, when he gets married, he cannot provide, for example, for first year or two. I must be there for him to start and to learn. Okay, and I told one of the parents, I was talking to them, I told them, majority of us, we started from the basement, a room in the basement, finished basement. You did. I did the same thing. I lived in basement for so many years. There was one bedroom and dining hall and a kitchen, small kitchen. Slowly, no businessman started becoming millionaire first day. No, they lost here, they here. Same thing for life. I told him, one of the parents, I literally begged him because his son told me, Sheikh, I'm getting into haram. Can you convince my father to allow me to get married? I told him, Habibi, you don't need your dad's permission. You're a son. You're a boy. Go ahead. He said, no, I want to get their permission and get their blessings. I literally had to beg the father. He said, no, he has to have money, car, everything, basics. I said, when you started, did you have the basics? He said, no. He said, I was not even in a basement. I was living in one room of my parents' house. We had one room. We didn't have our own private bathroom, full bathroom. So we were one room and share bathroom with everybody. So I told him right now, majority of the houses, they have basements. They have a full bathroom. You can start with a small kitchen in the house, slowly, until the boy gets there. Because his mind, his ability, his endeavor, his energy won't be guided. When he's not married, he's left and right. One day he works, one day he doesn't work. One day he is okay, but when you put responsibility on him and you have to provide, he's going to be waking up in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I have someone to feed. I won't be able to take off today.
But aren't there dangers? Like some people like are just irresponsible like that, assuming that they'll change when someone comes under their wing.
It is
be a risk.
It is. Everything is risk.
Especially because like earlier we mentioned that like, you know, an aspect of that a young boy becoming mature is like he starts working and stuff like that, right?
True.
So if they haven't reached that threshold, how are we sure that?
So if I see the person is not in that mindset at all, he's like literally loose. Like he has no goal in
No
life.
intentions of setting himself up outside of his father's
At all.
home.
Okay, so let's leave him alone. Until and said, and I tell some of these parents who come and they tell me that our kids are reckless. I tell them we have a saying in Farsi that pray that his head hits the wall sooner than later. Because when he hits the wall, okay, he wakes up. Okay, where am I? Oh, I'm here. Okay, let's figure it out. So pray for that moment to come sooner than later.
And you mentioned earlier that like, you know, like the parents are usually like, yeah, we started out with like very like, I guess low means, you know, we lived with our, I guess at the time, grandparents, one room, no special bathroom, no special bedroom, you know,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But wouldn't you say it's like a little different in the West? Like at least here in Virginia, right? To maintain a, like, I guess like just basic, you know, getting to work, back to work, like, you know, a car, you know, would be a big help. You know, public transportation isn't, you know, usually that reliable or like best.
Typically, right now, by age of 9,
Is it a necessity or is it a commodity?
I
for
think
marriage?
it is. And right now, I haven't seen that much of. I mean, right now, a lot of youth that come to our center, more than 99% of them they have cars. It might not be a high-end luxury car.
No, it doesn't need to be.
It has.
Yeah.
It gets them from point
Yeah.
A to point B. So I shouldn't, as a father of a girl, I shouldn't be looking. Okay, what kind of car he has? Well,
But then
if he has 4 tires and a wheel.
So safe to assume then Islam doesn't place these materialistic expectations. You have to have your own house.
Actually, it removes all of this.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Din rahma, right? It doesn't make sense to me how Allah would say that, you know, that this institution of marriage is going to protect you and fulfill half of your deen. Yet I want you to do all of these things first.
It's again,
it set you back.
Definitely it does. I had one DM that I know some families that got early married and then they had a lot of problems. I told him, well, maybe the choice was wrong. Number one, so you didn't pick the right partner for yourself. Number two, the means that you got to it. For example, if I don't have the means of providing for my family, we have to have $100,000 wedding, and you put yourself in that debt. Right now, okay, why this
That's
is not
a cultural sickness that we have, honestly.
So
From an Arab perspective.
Every issue that we have within our life is because we brought culture in and we left the religion out on the shelf.
Another thing, just before, I don't know if we're running low on time.
I think our masterminds behind the scenes are giving us an extra 15 minutes because we do want to talk about, like, now we've established the timing and stuff. We'll talk about like maybe what's too late, what's too early. But yeah, please.
Before we get to that, another thing, so like you mentioned that like with the car, you know, whatever's sufficient, like point A to point B to get there. I mean, can't we say the same thing for a job though too? Like, I guess the median, what is the average income
in America? 60,
or at least Virginia,
45.
I think when I checked, it was like 48,000
in Virginia.
In Virginia, I believe. Okay. Yeah,
it's going to be high in Virginia.
Yeah. So, I mean, to a certain extent, like if that car is required, I mean, that kind of income, we can also say should it not be required? I mean, just to provide the average living for the spouse.
Again, if we want to start at some level, which Islam hasn't put a level. Again, so when I see a person responsible, he might be making bare minimum salary, minimum wage. Well, since I believe in Quran, in kanu fuqara, if they were poor, yughnihimullahu min fadlih. Because I believe in that. And this person also has that religiosity in him, and he has good akhlaq. I know that Allah will provide. But again, it might take time. And I'm not going to go, if I cannot provide that much, and his parents cannot, I'm not going to put a big burden of a wedding and dowry and all of these cultural, which will break his back and my daughter's back, and it's going to ruin their future, because I want to say, okay, they had a nice
impress the people,
and see what people say. So if he starts with our own basement in one of the states I was there, young couples, they just had a smaller kid, 3-4 young couples, Hussein's age, and they had smaller kids, and they all had empty basements, basically, where I stayed for in Ramadan in one of their houses, which was 1 bedroom and full bathroom and a dining, small place. I told them, see, right now we have a lot of youth within our communities, this community that I was lecturing. I told them why, if their parents, they don't have a basement, for example, their parents live in an apartment. Why can't we as a community come together and say, okay, my basement is empty and vacant. I will give it for the first 6 months to 1 year to young couples who just got married and they cannot afford a rent. I'm already paying for downstairs and it's already vacant. How about I help a fellow Shia brother of mine and as a community member? You stay in my house. You can pay a little bit about toward the electricity and bills, a little bit, but stay down until you can stand on your own feet and you can either rent a house or buy a car, and Allah's risk opens for you, and then you can move on. Next year, the next person comes, how much blessings and barakah comes to this house of these people who host these kind of couples. We have to find the means rather than putting obstacles in front of young people. Okay, if you don't make this much money.
But I mean, minimum wage, is that not a reasonable requirement? I mean, because that shows that at least that you're trying, right?
Yeah.
I think
because like imagine you don't have a job, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you don't have a job, and this boy hasn't, or I guess you can say in an instance a girl, but not really.
Because we don't say girls because they don't have the responsibility of providing.
To provide, so like he comes and he's like, yeah, I don't have a job, but like I love the qualities of your daughter. I'd love to get married to her, you know. But like I
is
don't
he
think
looking?
Yeah, but
has he
that's
tried?
The thing. But then he is looking, but
has he sent resumes?
But you haven't seen any results though. But and like in today's society, I mean, like unless you're like a convict or something, like you can get
hard to find a job.
Yeah,
I mean, you can get a minimum wage even as a convict, and I think like it's kind of like balancing what Sheikh was saying about even if you don't have the job, as long as you have the intention and you're in the right direction.
And you're trying.
I will provide for you. As the father, I will provide for you. And I think what you're saying also is we live in...
Isn't that like
ideal?
We
live in the East Coast. There's expectations. There's social pressures. I mean, there's just almost no excuse for not having a minimum wage paying job, right?
Right.
So it's almost like it might be an exception where you have a youth trying to get married and he was unable to find any job.
And right now with our own friends, like your own youth, you know, around 100 of them at least within our own vicinity. Right. How many of them they have tried to find a job and they haven't found a job and they're not working, like they are completely lazy? Maybe 1 in 100, I don't think. I mean, I don't know of them right now on top of my head, any of them that they just don't want to work and they're not trying. No, they might not have a job yet, but they're working, trying here. They have shifted different jobs, which everybody is normal. I mean, until you find what you want to do. So
this brings something up that I talked about with a friend a long time ago. So then does it become a conversation of like, I can allow this to happen. Like I can give my daughter to this boy and they can get to know each other, be engaged for a period of time. Cause this is kind of like the plan that a lot of people are taking nowadays. They allow the two to be engaged for like, you know, a certain period of time. And then when he's ready, when he's financially situated, they get married and then they move out.
And I think between 3 to 9 months, inshallah, I don't know, we will get a time for it, the time between nikah and reception, which is not Islamic. I mean, nikah and reception was before, it was one thing. The same thing. You did nikah and then you gave walima and you're married. But then here right now you have nikah.
And you need the party. You have to have the party.
Yeah. So if we want to go with that, basically between 3 to 9 months, I think maximum.
For engagement period.
For engagement period for them to.
What if it takes longer?
Ideally.
Though?
It should not.
Ideal.
I mean, again, sometimes it takes.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, like we're mentioning ideals all the time, but then, like realistically, like to nail a job in 3 to 9 months.
It should be. I mean, they're not going to find within the 3 to 9 months.
Some people, I mean, like, and also we live in a East Coast, you know, relatively affluent area, part of Northern Virginia, where people are looking for very specialized jobs.
Yeah, they're not willing to do.
they're willing to wait because they're looking to land a job with a
Right.
big three,
They
big
want
four
the nice
consulting
job,
firm.
yeah.
They want to work for Amazon now that Amazon is here. They want to work for Google because Google is here. So they'll wait and they won't risk, almost like, take a large risk because of the opportunity cost of missing out on that job. But now that we're here talking about, too early, not too early, depending on wage and income. Let's talk about harms.
I think that should not become a deal breaker at all.
Job?
Yeah, that should not be a deal breaker. I believe
Like you said earlier, if
you have
the
tawakkul-
intention in the resume, I guess you could say, is there,
And
I would say
action,
shouldn't be.
yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be. But
for example, if he's working at 7-Eleven, let's just
Right.
put a name out there. But he's working. He wakes up early in the morning before Salat al-Subh. He's trying to, because he has heard that Allah's rizq is distributed through the hands of Ahlulbayt between Salat al-Subh and sunrise. He wakes up early morning. He leaves for a job. He's putting all of his effort. Right now he's 7-Eleven. He has that religiosity in him and morality and akhlaq. I'll go find him for my own daughter. I'm not going to wait for him to come. I'll go find him.
So what could be the harms of waiting too long to get married? Because I want the perfect job. Because I want the perfect housing situation.
It will never come.
So
Because we
what
won't
are the
be con-
consequences?
It will be delayed and it will get to a point, because I have a lot of cases. I think after a certain age, arguably after age 26, 27-ish, it becomes so difficult to find the right spouse.
A lot of candidates are already taken.
A lot. Or they don't match me, or I'm already, because by
You
that
get
time,
too rigid in your mind.
you're being established.
Sorry, one thing I want to say, but according to Forbes, people who
Back with Forbes.
Yeah, sorry.
Forbes made it 2 episodes now. SubhanAllah.
People who do marry after or later than the age of 25, the divorce rate goes down 14%.
But these are also people that are most likely, there's not really a religious sample size.
True, but I mean, it definitely still applies. We're not saying.
I would say like those studies can be sometimes misleading because it's a completely different audience. It's
True.
an audience that is like not God-centric at all. Therefore, they're not really beholden to the same standards that we
I would say there's definitely still some truth to it, though. To an
It's always
extent.
a core area of truth.
It can be. I mean, we cannot deny it. I mean, facts are facts.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing from the communities and traveling all around different states and different provinces and countries, and I'm seeing the devastation, especially when it gets to 28, 29, 30. I see how they are devastated as a family, as an individual. And I always ask them, when the time was there between 19, 20, 21, 22, to the girls, did you have proposals? Yes. Why did you delay it? Well, education. I'll tell the boys, why did you delay it? Well, because they asked me to finish my job and all of this, and education and degree, all of this. And they are trying
Is
to...
that bad for a boy, though? I mean,
Yes.
in today's society, I mean, you could be a little older as a guy and get married still. It's
Everything is
easier
possible,
with
yeah.
age. I mean, for a
But
guy,
you've
it's
missed out on
definitely easier.
opportunities now.
Yeah.
True, but I mean, like Sheikh said earlier, like the longer you wait, the older the guys you'll marry. Like for a girl, relatively. So like, let's just say I'm a 30-year-old guy, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're gonna be with this
But
guy
I could
until
still
age 30.
I mean, in today's, I guess you can say like Western society, like I would say it's pretty possible for me to marry someone anywhere between, even younger, like somewhere in their 20s, but very normal for me to marry someone who's anywhere like
It's
25.
normal, but you won't find it. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of cases that they're not matching. So the older you get, your personality is being shaped, and you have a set of doing things and way of doing things.
Become rigid.
And let's get to know one another. I had a case of brother and sister. They were trying to get to know one another for 8 years.
Subhan. I mean, how much is there to know about a person?
After 8 years, they said, okay, I think it's time for us to get married. The older you get, because
at least they went through with it.
hopefully it will
Unless
last.
they made it to the decision.
They will become less risk taker, and there's more to it. It's not good at all to delay it at all.
Especially if you like we discussed, you've reached the minimum age, you passed puberty, you've reached some intellectual maturity, you reached emotional maturity, you have ilm of your deen, you're applying your deen.
So then
what else is left?
What would we say is like, what age is that they reach all those.
I think what we talked about is it's very subjective. From an age perspective, I think we said like biologically there are minimums set based off of your physical maturity.
Right.
But then there's more intangible things that are like emotional intelligence, intellectual.
We were mentioning ideals earlier. So what would you guys like? What do you guys think ideally is like the threshold where those are met? Like,
I think the age is impossible to pinpoint an age.
For me personally, like according to what I've seen so far, I would say like emotional mature. Like of course it's all relative. It's subjective, you know. But for people who are like me, I've seen that the emotional maturity has been somewhat reached. Like you could say anywhere between mid-20s, maybe even early 20s, depending on the guy. Maybe even a little later.
Yeah, I won't leave it until 24. I mean, I will work before 24.
Or religious maturity. Like for religious maturity, for me, I would say anything under 20. I personally, I don't see a guy being that religious mature where like establishing wajibat to like, you know, the T.
But we also said that's not mandatory.
Yeah.
Like the wajibat isn't mandatory to be
I mean,
100% before you get
once
married.
again, like what I mentioned earlier, like there is that risk. Like if you're not established in that lifestyle, change happens, risk happens. And of course, there's no way to eliminate risk, but you should also definitely account for losses. You know, shouldn't just...
You can eliminate risk by buying insurance. I don't know. If anybody works in insurance, it's risk transfer. Dua, inshallah. Inshallah. I think maybe we'll start taking some questions on the topic. So I'm pretty sure our viewers have a lot of questions. Maybe in future episodes we can like carve out some time towards the end. What do you guys think?
Sure, that's a great idea. Yeah,
FAQs.
Yeah,
get some questions from the crowd.
Should do Instagram polls, stuff like that.
Yeah, if we keep talking, we're gonna exceed all the limits.
Yes.
Yeah, especially since you mentioned 15 seconds is like the average attention span right now. Like is this? Do we want any closing thoughts before we end this discussion?
I'll give this analogy and I'll.
I love your analogies.
Go first so you can
go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
I think one of the biggest points that like at least that I've taken away today is that it's relative, it's subjective. It's not. It's like as we've always said, like it's not one size fits all. Your situation is molded to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala believes is best for you.
Absolutely.
If we look in history, like for instance, Imam Ali got married around what age? Like I would say 22, right? It was 2 years after Hijrah, so around that age, maybe 22, 23, 24. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi got married around 25.
Yes.
So, you know, if there was a single age or age range, then, you know, all the Ahlulbayt would have been married around that time. So I would say you definitely have to do some introspection as a youth, whether you be a boy or a girl. You have to look into whether or not you are emotionally mature, whether are you intellectually mature, religiously mature, financially mature, you know. And
I like that, financially mature as opposed to financially ready.
Yeah,
but financially
like,
mature, that's a really good one.
And you have to do that introspection, and then you have to also want it. Like Sheikh said, like all these thresholds, half of it, other than action, is the intention. Absolutely. And you know, there's the hadith that Rasulullah says that reward. I'm gonna paraphrase because I might not get it right, but reward is based on intention. Everyone will be rewarded with what they intended. Yeah, based on their intention. So yeah, if you're working towards that path, then you'll definitely reach it there sooner, and you'll be ready to get married. But
my closing remark will be strive sooner than later. In delaying it, there is a lot of harms, a lot. Compared to even if you're not ready, but you do it, the harms will be much less than just delaying it, because I don't see myself ready. Because again, who will be able to say you are ready or not? Even yourself, sometimes with what you hear, you might be deceived that, okay, I'm not ready. And then suddenly you see yourself, you're at age 40, basically. No, be optimistic. So start early, strive, do dua, ask, try to put it together, because every rak'ah of married person is rewarded much more than the single person.
So mine is 50% off.
Yeah, and even sleeping, married person sleeping is more reward than a single person.
Are you going to tell me breathing is?
Yes. No, these are two hadith. So you want to get more of the blessings of that married couples have than single. So strive.
And also like a generational gap.
Yes.
when you're getting married too late.
Don't let me start with that.
Which makes raising your children even harder. You can't be the
Definitely.
friend anymore. Now you're like the dictator in the house.
True.
Ahsantum, Sheikh Mustafa, Brother Ali. Thank you both for
Alhamdulillah.
your insight,
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, where are you? Dear viewers, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Tafakkur Podcast. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, please drop them below and we'll address them in the next episode, inshallah. Shukran wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.